Welcome to Cooper's Pond, located in what is now called Bergenfield in Bergen County, New Jersey. To the northeast, just across the pond, is the Marchbank property. In the 1800s, the industrialized revolution came to this small American community. This is the story of T.R. Cooper's chair factory and its contribution to history. Richard Tunis Cooper and his wife Effie Heiler bought 15 acres of land along what was then known as Long Swamp Brook in Schralenberg on May 2, 1840 from its previous owner, Frederick Mabey. This property included a frame house, a grist mill, at least one barn, and a mill pond. It was here that the Coopers set up their home and a chair-making business. On January 2, 1849, Richard's 38-year-old son, Tunis Richard, purchased the property and business from his parents. The grist mill was converted into a sawmill. In addition, a shop was added to the mill, and a sign was affixed to the building which read, T.R. Cooper's Chair Factory. The 1850 population schedule, the first to include occupations, listed Tunis R. Cooper, chair manufacturer, not chair maker. The Coopers were very skilled at their profession, having come from a long line of chair makers, and they sought a particular type of site for their business. Of all the places they could choose, why this particular site? We asked Kevin Wright, an acknowledged authority on the Cooper Chair Factory, to explain.
Before the American Civil War of the 1860s, there was no industrial city as we know it today. Industry was largely dispersed throughout the countryside. And this came from the fact that the technology didn't exist to generate power and transmit it any long distance to a factory. Industry had to be located alongside of the waterfalls that provided the power to operate the businesses. Now, the selection of this site apparently took place late in the 18th century, and what you would have to begin with here was some knowledge of the lay of the land. This was known as the Long Swamp Brook, and it was a natural depression here at the end of the Teaneck Ridge, where water would, the runoff from the upland, from the hills, would gather into a basin, probably originally a swamp or a bog, and using a very primitive earth or stone and wooden dam, you could impound this natural catch basin of water and create enough pondage to create an adequate reservoir of water for business purposes.
The workmen for the Cooper Chair Factory came from the Van Saun, Banta, Stallwood, and Earl families who lived in homes along Prospect Street in a section called Cooperstown. John Du Bois, a turner, lived on Schralenberg Road, which is now called Washington Avenue. Several apprentices were housed in the second-floor attic of the main house. These men were called matters, and they worked at rushing and caning the seats of the chairs. The business flourished during the period 1859 to 1863. As early as July 17, 1858, an ad in the Bergen County Journal listed A.E. Fatton as a cabinet maker of Main Street, Hackensack, and agent for the sale of T.R. Cooper's chairs. Unpublished ledgers in the New York City directories indicate the business included a 6-story warehouse and a showroom at 442 Pearl Street and several other addresses in New York City from 1859 to 1863. The ledgers also show that the Cooper chairs were shipped throughout the east coast of the United States. According to the survey, Products of Industry, Hackensack Township, 1860, the factory was the largest in Hackensack Township, employing in Bergen County alone an average of 25 workers. The value of the annual product was listed at $20,000, and Mr. Cooper's investment was reported at $15,000.
This is probably is a characteristic Jersey Dutch ladderback chair, the 3-slat back with the urn finial. And it being a fairly simple form of chair made by the Cooper Chair Factory and also by almost every other factory in Bergen County, you can look at the basic process that was employed here. They would generally use several types of wood in a single chair. This is often why early furniture was painted, to conceal the fact that several different types of wood with its distinctive graining would appear in a single piece. They would take a solid piece of plank, place it into a lathe, and oftentimes you can still see the marks of the pin that would hold this piece into the lathe. It would then be turned by water power, and with gouges, and perhaps even with patterns to guide them, they would then shape this into a dowel and then gradually shape the small turnings and finials, any type of fine work they wanted to put into it. Now for the stretchers, these are bent to conform to the shape of your back. So these would have to use a wood, this is probably ash here, that would be flexible, and using the steam power of this plant, they could bend these into shape. You'll notice that the upper piece has been pinned into place using wooden pins. Very often these pins will give you an indication of the age of the chair. Pins indicate the earliest chair. Iron nails, of course, would indicate one made later. Now they use the natural forces of nature to assist them in a sense, because they would use, they would use uncured posts and cured slats, so that when this is inserted, the tongue is inserted into the slot to hold it. As the post would cure and dry around it, it would tighten, tighter than any glue that could be made. And many of these chairs are still indestructible today. I know there is one legend that to sell his chairs to clients, they said that Tunis Cooper would throw one out of the upper floor of the factory and promise the client it would be in one piece when it landed, and apparently it always was. The final stage of making the chair, once you had turned your uprights and fitted in your stretchers, was to, of course, mat the seat. Now, one of the reasons that Bergen County was one of the largest areas in northeastern United States for the manufacture of chairs was the unlimited availability of cattail reeds in the swamp marshes of the Hackensack River. These made an eternally renewable and almost endlessly supplied material for chair seating. So the chair, as you can see, the intricacy of the work that was done here, twisting together several reeds at a time and interlocking them and overlapping them to form the chair seat. These also proved quite durable. On close inspection, many of these chair seats, you will even see traces of paint, often yellow paint, and the seats were painted in olden times to serve as a preservative.
In June of 1985, the Bergenfield Museum Society mounted an exhibit at the South Church Hall, which overlooks Cooper's Pond. In addition, a steering committee made up of Betty Schmeltz, Irene Fitzgerald, Charles Zaglin, and Catherine Marchbank put together a publication of their findings called T.R. Cooper's Chair Factory, Early Industry in Rural Schralenberg. I quote this reference. To the best of our knowledge, we have included information documented by primary sources. An attempt has been made to validate all information through cross-referencing. Also included in this publication are some samples from an unpublished collection of drawings done by Charles Lichtenberg. The sketches depict side chairs, rockers, desk chairs, swivel chairs, a child's high chair, and 2 stencil-decorated chairs. These chairs were offered with the option of straw, rush, or cane seats, and with different woods and finishes. According to the sketchbook and oral history, some of the chairs at the New York showroom, located at 442 Pearl Street, were sold wholesale by the dozen for as little as $24. The New York City directories for 1861 through 1864 list Lichtenberg first as a cabinet maker and then as a carver at 2611 4th Avenue. The chairs were not marked by the Coopers, so the sketchbook and family tradition, along with some early photographs, have been used for identification. The first sale of the day, on Friday, August 9th, 1861, was to the Panama Railroad. It's the only record found of a Cooper chair going out of the country. Back in 1985, we talked to Catherine Marchbank about T.R. Cooper and his chairs. Now I'd like to introduce you to Catherine Marchbank. She and her husband, Alec, own the Cooper property now, including the home which we're in right now. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Jim.
And you've kept it in a wonderful, fine historic tradition, I might add.
Thank you. We've enjoyed being here.
How did the Coopers get into your life? How did it happen?
Well, I was born and grew up in Bergenfield and skated on Cooper Pond and enjoyed the peace and quiet of the park after 1933 when it was built. And when the man who lived here died, Alec and I had 3 little boys and we needed more room, so we bought the house and we started to repair it. It was in awful shape then. The porch was falling down and other people who looked at it thought it was hopeless. But we were young and silly, and we started in 37 years ago, and we're still at it.
And you're still keeping it looking terrific.
Well, thank you. There's still things to do.
With all the history surrounding the Cooper property and all the interesting people who've lived here all the way back to the Revolutionary War, I understand, aren't you kind of afraid that the place might be haunted?
I wish it were. Harry Bogart, who was Tuna's grandson, told us early on that we should expect one ghost, at least the sound of horses' hooves coming down the driveway. And I've been waiting to hear them ever since and have never heard them. What happened was that Tuna's only son, Henry, liked a bit of nightlife and his father disapproved. So he'd go get the horse from the stable, wrap the horse's hoofs in claws, and softly come past the house until he got to Prospect Avenue and take off for the evening. But I've never heard the horse, I've never heard Henry, and I've been waiting for 36 years.
I guess the senior Mr. Cooper must have been a pretty strict taskmaster.
I've heard that many times, that he expected good work from his men and he expected them to work hard. But I also know that he loved music and had a wonderful singing voice, and he loved his children, and he loved his grandchildren. There's still one lovely little rocking chair he made for his granddaughter, Eva Bogart Tremper. That's as good as the day he made it. And I know she enjoyed it all her life. When she was an old woman, she was still very fond of the chair her grandfather made for her.
Are there a lot of pieces of Cooper furniture in the area?
Oh, I think so. I think so. I think there are very, very many. Everyone who was connected with the Coopers and Bogarts have saved their chairs, and the people who worked at the chair factory saved theirs. In fact, someone liked their Cooper chairs so much that they had them copied at the Bogart factory in Westwood, and I think when they were made that way, they cost about 10 times what they did to begin with.
Oh, I can
From the
believe
original,
that, right.
right
Doesn't
from
everything today, though.
Exactly.
Listen, we'd love to see the Cooper house. Would you take us on a little tour?
Certainly will.
Okay.
Love to show it to you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Ah, these are the windows, huh?
Yes, the apprentices lived in one great big room, and it had a separate entrance and it wasn't connected with the rest of the house at all. They ate their meals with the Coopers, and I expect when the evening meal is done, they went up there and had their own chat and fun.
I bet they did. Now, those windows have a funny name, don't they? Or...
They're called eyebrow windows.
It's a good name because they look just like eyebrows over the dining room windows as eyes.
Yes, they do.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I want to thank you for giving us this great tour of the house and the grounds. And thank Alec for me, too.
We'll do that.
Right. Thank you very much. Tunis Richard Cooper died May 18, 1887, and was buried in South Church Graveyard just west of the pond that bears his name. He was a man ahead of his time. Through his ingenuity, he developed a small local business into a manufacturing distributorship with customers all along the east coast of the United States, from Key West to Newport. He took advantage of his skills, the natural resources, and a growing marketplace for his product. I'm Jim Branch for the Bergenfield Museum Society.